Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conscious Awakening series. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and I want to thank you for joining us. Now, before I introduce our guest for today, I want to ask everybody to just close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath in, grounding yourself into the earth. I want you to breathe in gratitude for this now moment. Taking another deep cleansing breath. I want to share a few words with you. So just keep those eyes closed, sit back, and allow the frequency of what I'm going to share just resonate through you. As we arrive on planet Earth, after traversing the cosmos through multiple incarnations and cycles, dimensionally jumping and shifting from frequencies of experience into others, on a quest for awareness to know ourselves. Together, we embark on a journey, the greatest story ever told. How can we get to this place? What is the universe? Who are we? Where did we come from? What is the potential of humanity? Take another deep breath in and let these words resonate all the way through the body. Take another deep breath in. Open your eyes. Exhale and step in to the magic of our call today. So welcome back, everybody. Now, the words that I just shared with you were written by our guest, Neil Gaur, founder of the Portal to Ascension. And his collection of poetry is the first in a published series of spoken word from the next dimension, brought into this density to pave the way for what is to come. So, Neil, I want to go ahead and bring you up. I want to congratulate you on your book. And I want you to just share with everybody who you are, what your path was, how you got here. I know everybody knows you from Portal to Ascension, but, let's just share everything there. Just give us the down and dirty about Neil Gaur here.
Okay. You know what's so funny? When you were reading that, I didn't know that I wrote it. I literally thought that was the introduction to your show.
Yeah. Well, maybe you could be.
No, I thought to myself, I'm like, whoa, that's cool. Sheila has like a really cool intro for her show. And when I wrote it, I just wrote it in the moment and then I never looked back at it.
Wow. How profound was that? Yeah, Neil, that's the opening to my show. Wasn't it cool? You want to use it for your book?
It would. No, it's perfect. It's a perfect opening. So hello to everybody out there. My name is Neil with Portal to Ascension. And it's pretty cool because, I've always wanted to write books, Sheila. And I've always wanted to move into writing bigger books on different topics. But I wanted to start with poetry. And this is the first time I've ever been interviewed for my book out of all the interviews I've ever done. Right. So it's kind of cool to have that opportunity and to kind of give everybody a little background of how it came about. I guess we'll start with just like my journey. Like the book is called Planet Earth, Poetry from the Next Dimension. And as I've been doing poetry for so long, I've always had that feeling and the theme that the words that are coming are actually poetry from the next dimension that is almost like the music from a whole other reality that people aren't really all in yet. So even when I create my hip hop, when I do freestyle raps, when I create full on music, my understanding is that we're creating a new genre that is going to be in existence, it's going to be out there. And then as people wake up and more people wake up, they're going to start getting what that information is.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so, really, Neil, what got you started with your poetry?
Yeah. So how it started was when I was 16 years old, I was in 10th grade in California, and we had an English class where we were doing World War II poetry, right? And the homework assignment was that we had to pick like our favorite World War II poets, and we had to piece together their poetry into one poem. So we had to pick 5 or 6 poets and take different verses and words and make our own poem out of it. So I did that, and I created one called "The Dead and the Dying," and it was about just warfare and people on the battlefield. And when I created a poem, it was truly still is one of my, like, I would say one of the best pieces I've ever written. And even though it was a piece together, multiple other poets, just the way it came together, the way it flowed, and the way it seems like it's its own piece, even though it's like 5 different poets combined into one, was pretty
Right.
amazing. So that was the first time I did poetry. And then after that, there was a couple more assignments where I started writing. And pretty soon, when I was 16, 17 years old, then I started writing full-on poetry. So my original poetry, my poetry now is kind of like hip hop, spoken word, very performance orientated. Originally, my original poems, straight up poetry. Let me see if I can give you an example. Well, the first one, for example, was like, "Where the dead and the dying lay, the dark air spurts with fire. A man's brain splattered on a stretcher bearer's face. He has challenged death and dared him face to face." It was like very not structured, but poetry in the essence of what you would read.
Yeah.
There was ones about like the fragrance of roses, an existence worth living, asking, begging, giving, karmically tied obligation. My heart is bleeding. Very like soft kind of energy to it.
Yeah.
And then when I turned 18, I went to college. I started freestyle rapping, right? And like getting really into hip hop and underground hip hop. And I found that there was this whole genre of hip hop artists that were so underground that what they would do is they would get instrumentals and they were pretty much rapping the poetry on top of instrumentals. So yeah, I began doing that. And I met a couple of people in college that had a music studio. And just every day after school, we would just freestyle rap. Right. So that was kind of the morphing of my poetry. So that's how it started.
It's amazing. That's amazing. And so you actually started the poetry way before you started Portal to Ascension.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Port Ascension 2006 was when the group was created online. 2008 was when the name was changed to Portal to Ascension. So I started so basically the way it changed to spiritual stuff, what I realized was like in my poetry, I was always throwing in words like, conforming against society, conforming with society. The man wants to control us, things like that. Even when I was 17, 18, when I started freestyling at 18, I was writing things like black hole. I was writing things like universe. So even though, because the freestyle was in essence like pure raw, kind of what people would think as trash rap, it was like, like just like having a good time with my friends, drinking, just saying a bunch of crap, But within there, the filler words, there was always like little words like alien, because I'm an alien, because like I'm throwing a black hole, and I still wasn't fully awake yet. And then in 2001, about a year after I started freestyling rapping, I started researching some of the terms that I was writing down. Black hole. I was doing a short story about 2 different beings that were from other planets. One was a planet of just men, and one was a planet of just women. And I had created a short story in 2000 of these 2 planets that both sexes were from, and how they met, and how they eventually had children together, and then the children came to Earth, right? So that was like when I was 18 years old. And there was something called Live Journal, which was like this thing where kind of like a blog posting on internet where you could share your blogs. So I was writing it there, and I still wasn't into any of this stuff. So I started researching keywords and jargon for my poetry and for my short stories, right? And then through that, plus a couple of mushroom journeys later, that I found William Henry, Jordan Maxwell, Nassim Haramein, and Jim Self in 2001. Those are all the people I started with. And I started realizing that, a lot of the words that I was saying were actually true concepts about genetic manipulation of humanity, extraterrestrials existing. And the reason why I was saying all these spiritual things was because there was this underlying essence within me that was like a calling out, like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, like that I was eventually going to be into this work. And when I started getting more into this work and awakening to it around 2002, 2003, that's when my poetry completely shifted and started becoming what, some of what you hear today, some of the interdimensional stuff.
Nice. And so now the book that you're writing, first off, when will it be released, or has it been released?
It's been released right here. Boom.
Okay. Well, awesome. Yeah. So tell us about it.
Okay.
When was
So
it released?
it was released about 2 months ago now, right?
Okay,
So
great.
so this guy is called this Planet Earth Poetry from the Next
Uh-huh.
Dimension, right? And the way it's structured is so I have thousands of poetry pieces. So what I did was I put them all in albums based on themes, right? So I just finished writing and submitted the manuscript for my second book called Our Galactic Ancestry, an intergalactic um, poetry, intergalactic poetry from extraterrestrial worlds. That's my next book
Mm,
coming out in 1 month, right? That was
nice.
all about extraterrestrial life. Okay. So I'm starting with Planet Earth, poetry from the next dimension, and then I go into galactic stuff. And the reason why I started with this one is because this is basically a story, right? Even though it's all individual poems, the first one, and I love in a moment, I'll share some poetry kind of from the book.
Mm.
And the first one is called Astral Travel that you've heard before. And that one is basically a soul from the center of the galaxy, the black hole center of the galaxy, traveling through space to come to Earth to incarnate. And it's a whole journey. And in the end of that song, in the poem, I say, I reincarnated onto this planet November 17th, 1982. So you realize that the whole journey I'm explaining is the journey of my soul reincarnating onto the planet. And then the other poems in the book are basically different incarnations. So it's like, imagine like a soul coming from the center of the galaxy, from the void, incarnating onto Earth, and then being stuck here for dimensional incarnations over and over and over. So the whole journey is that. And then the last poem is the Ascension. So it's like life after life after life, struggle, love, joy, emotions, experiences, what's going on, can we escape? And then the last one is the return to the divine. So that's the structure of the poetry book. Yeah.
I love that. So maybe the third book could be about one of your other passions, that where you begin to talk about all of the origins of humanity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I
I've
think
heard
the
that
second one,
presentation several times, and I
right.
think it's absolutely phenomenal.
Well, I'd love for you to read the second one because I feel that that's what it is.
That
Because
is
the next one's
beautiful.
called Our Galactic Origins, right? And it's
Mhm.
all about poetry that represent different, all the stuff I wrote about extraterrestrials, many of that you've
Uh-huh.
heard already. And then the last part, so there's like 15 poems on extraterrestrials and dimensions. And then the last part is called The Anunnaki. And then there's 7 poems, spoken word pieces specifically about Anunnaki and genetic manipulation. And what I did was in this one, I wrote descriptions of the poems. So it's actually a nonfiction book with poetry.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, I need a copy.
Yeah. It even breaks down because in the Anunnaki one before it, I have a 2-page thing where I'm literally writing the evolution of humanity and how there's holes in Darwinism. I explain that whole thing. I talk about the different hominids that were on Earth, and I give scientific evidence that we probably were genetically mutated, and then the poetry begins.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
So
pretty cool. Yeah.
if people want to buy your book, where do they get a hold of you?
So this one, next one, Amazon. So just type in, Neil Gaur Planet Earth, and it's right there. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So in this book as well. So basically, what I did was, it's a small book, so I wanted to make it bigger. So I did those poems that I explained, and then in the end, I decided to do a poetry dump of all my etheric information that are really abstract. So I called the last part the Ancient Scrolls. And if you don't mind, I'll just read like the intro
Love
to
it.
that. Okay. So it's all the poetry, right? And it goes like, the last poem is The Road to Zion that you've heard of. And it goes, the last line is to set all of humanity in 13 different third dimensional planetary systems free. So follow me, and together we will ascend to the fourth density. So, we started incarnating here, we go into that, and then it goes the Ancient Scrolls. So this is what the intro is. You are about to enter the ancient archives of your planetary system. As you enter this portal through the process of turning these pages, the library of your Terra and other orbiting planets around your soul, your sun, will be unveiled. You who are reading this have now heard the call. You were chosen, and you also selected this Earth experience. This incarnation is a gift that you gifted yourself. Your ancient memories await you, and your extrasensory abilities are ready to reemerge once again. Welcome to the ancient library, the Ancient Scrolls. The following is esoteric awareness that has been hidden from humanity for eons, presented through the medium of the spoken word. With each page you turn, you unlock a key in your own consciousness. thereby unlocking codes within the cosmos, as above, so below, and so it was written.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then it goes into the poetry.
That is so awesome. So you want to share some of the poetry with us?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. All right, let's start with, let's see. So we'll start with the beginning, the astral travel one. Okay, so the first one is, okay, it actually goes, the fifth world is the first one, and then it goes into astral travel. So we'll do both of those poems. The fifth world. Meditate and levitate. Waves of frequencies resonate higher. I'm connected with the provider, source of cosmic energy. We're going to be one single entity. Expansion remedied. Oneness must breathe. Exhale and let free. Consciousness to be. Experiences of you and me. Souls of interdimensional beings to feel, hear, and see this third dimensional planetary existence. All time can be seen in one instance. In this realm of linearity, atoms in anarchy, quantum polarity, consciousness duality, the epitome of creation, ether's imagination, facing our egos, acquiring patience, waiting to let go of our nations, and join the federation of souls that will take us to the fifth world. And we'll go right into astral travel. Okay, so this one is the one I was sharing about incarnating. So I love to give people the visual because it's so abstract. Sometimes you don't know what is actually happening there. So it's like the visual of leaving the wormhole and coming to Earth to incarnate. Astral travel, vibrating high out of the center of the galaxy. We materialize etheric energy, dropping in density, increasing in complexity. To the ends of the spiral I shall go. Planets form all around. I see a water world in the system of soul. My soul creates in this illusion a spacesuit made of skin, into a polarized reality of duality, oneness and sin. Carbon-based, I will join the crystalline children. I slowly descend through the ozone. I will be born soon, so I enter a womb. Birth cycle almost ends. You see, I rode the unity wave into this dimension. I forgot when time became linear. Masculine-based society, suppressing her. Feminine energy, creating stargates and other etheric tools, going through the wormhole, spinning around like a whirlpool, here to overrule the external in this earth school. From my eyes, I finally lifted the wall. I incarnated onto this planet November 17th, 1982.
Awesome. So Neil, I love your poetry. Always have loved your poetry. Now it's exciting that you're able to share it with the world. So that's super cool.
Yeah.
You could give like a brief description if you have to, give your describing a couple sentences about the book. What's the main points that you want to bring home for people?
Yeah. So this poetry book, everyone is going to have that kind of theme about it. This one is about us being, let me tune into it. It's about us being into this matrix, this illusionary, but also very real existence, right? So it's the story of that. And then within that story, it speaks about all the struggles and challenges that we've experienced, but also the beauty. So what I feel people get out of this is the synopsis really is the journey of our souls from other realities onto Earth and the reasons and possibilities of why we have these experiences, but not looking at it from a place of victimhood, but looking at it from a place of experience. You'll see that many, many times come from these poems is like being stuck in this darkness and it's like crazy. Oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? And then you see at the end of the poetry, the beauty, the perspective shifts. So what I would like people to get out of this is they can relate to a lot of the struggles that we have had in incarnations here, right? And then they can see at the end of each poetry piece that when you shift your perspective and realize the bigger picture of why we came down here, it can be a very empowering experience. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's like the short version of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then with your next book,
Yeah.
What is it that you're hoping to accomplish? Because you're putting so much information in here. It's
Yeah.
not just poems. You're actually able to bring forth through a philosophical point of view
Yeah.
about the true origins of
Right.
humanity.
Yeah, so like that's the other part is really each of these poems are full on lectures,
Yeah.
right? Like I could like, and I've done this before on my YouTube where I've just said the poetry and I spend like 20 minutes explaining each line because there's so much, some of these lines, there's years and years of research and information that I just packed into one little sentence, right? So some people will get it and be like, oh, well, that means this. Other people will just feel the frequency of it, right? So it's informational. It's a lecture in the form of creativity, right? And then for the galactic ancestry one, that's even more the case because what I'm doing there is kind of like helping people remember and also learn and educate them on how vast our experiences are in the cosmos, right? And the different types we've been on this planet. There's like a whole entire poem called The Prism of Lyra, which talks about the Pleiadians, the Sirians, and the Arcturians and their interactions with each other. And there's 2 verses basically dedicated to what went down with them. It's a whole galactic, it's called The Prism of Lyra, an exploration of our galactic ancestry, right? And so with that one, the next one, it's even more on point, I feel, with right now, because as you might know, all the stuff going on in the disclosure movement in the last month, where the government and whistleblowers have said there's a UFO crash retrieval team, and they're about to have a hearing on non-human intelligence spacecraft that they have, in their possession on Wednesday. So I I submitted this book faster than I was going to, and I changed it to make sure that in between my poems, I have actual concrete information and evidence about the existence of extraterrestrial life, right? So I feel I'm going to be releasing it at the same time all this is going on, and it'll be a really cool book for people to get where they can not only experience something in the form of art and poetry, but they can also be informed about the vastness of the cosmos and what's going on out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the information that you're bringing also creates a heart opening and a space that people can, begin to expand their minds. Because
Yeah.
I think more and more people no longer are they thinking of, extraterrestrials as being some type of, EBGB out there that,
Yep.
these crazy people are talking about. It's really becoming more normalized, and people are beginning to understand that, even science is beginning to take a second look at all
Mm-hmm.
that junk DNA that we have, because in that first osmotic activity, when a fetus is being created and we have those first 8 cells, they're already showing that a lot of the information that's in there they can't classify.
Yeah.
So, that has to be from our galactic origins. And the other 8 cells, of course, are our Earth-based cells. And as those begin to merge, then we become our soul essence. I believe that soul essence incarnated into a humanoid form. So
Yeah.
when we leave this life, we can add to our repertoire of everything else that we have done, that we also have been an earthling. And I don't think
Mhm.
that that's too far of a stretch for people anymore. People acknowledge that we have a soul, and that a soul is ever evolving, that the soul is eternal. Well, what are we doing for eternity? We're not just sitting around on a cloud drinking cappuccino. We're having these other experiences, and the earth is one place that we have these. So bringing this galactic perspective down into a real normalized
Yeah.
presentation that people can really get without all the woo woo attached to it, I think is
Right.
phenomenal. I think this is
Yeah.
groundbreaking. Good job.
Thank you. That's the next level. Like what's going on right now. I always wanted what's happening right now. I always wanted, right?
Yeah.
I always wanted even extraterrestrials to land and us to have an interdimensional connection and communication in reality. But I was getting to a point where I was kind of feeling that it was going to happen in a different way than I used to think, that, there's going to be some sort of like huge event, huge occurrence that makes people wake up. But now what just happened in the last month with the disclosure, this is stuff that I didn't even think that would even happen, right? The fact that we're talking about non-human intelligences and Congress members are on and senators are on regular podcasts on the internet and on TV and are saying we have evidence to suggest that these beings are either us from the future or in a very advanced ancient civilization that's been here for a long time.
Yeah.
Amazing TV.
Phenomenal.
This is next level esoterics, right?
Yeah.
So this is only the beginning. And the fact that they have all these different types of extraterrestrials they've been connecting with. The first crash retrieval was with Mussolini in 1933, where World War II was even a part of a crash retrieval. That was also came out by David Grush, the whistleblower. So it seems that a lot of agencies, governments, and people have had interactions with extraterrestrials. And even a whistleblower came out and said that the South Pole Station acts as a way station for incoming and outgoing UFOs into our atmosphere because of the position of it. So they actually, it's almost like Men in Black,
Right.
where we're having all this interaction going on. So we are now shifted to what is out there to, oh my God, there is something out there. They're not from this planet and they're intelligent. I don't want to say extraterrestrial. I don't want to say alien, but every now and then, anchor on news breaks character and says, just say alien, because they can't, their minds are being blown, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you
So,
imagine, a congressman finally admitting this? I
yeah,
mean, it's phenomenal. There's never been a time like this in the history of humanity, of
no,
written history of
yeah,
humanity.
right. So what's the next step is who they are, what they know about us, what they know about the universe, what they know about the connection to source, and their level of amnesia, right? How amnesiac are they, or do they? Because from what I understand, is we're the only ones within this reality dimension that have full amnesia, right?
Right,
So
right.
it's just gonna like shift so many perspectives, and I'm almost like kind of like I don't know, grateful, but I kind of see the potential of why they dripped it so slowly,
Yeah.
because the UFOs were out there for like almost like 6-7 years as mainstream, not ridiculed anymore, and enough people knew about it. And now they're finally saying what they weren't saying the whole time.
Right.
And it's almost like people are ready for that now. Whereas if you just said it before, it would have maybe like shook some people up.
Right.
And I've been reading the comments on these YouTube videos. Regular people are like mind blown. One news anchor said to the person who released this disclosure stuff, "Is this a soft disclosure for alien life?"
Yeah.
So that's why I'm writing this next book. That's why we do the work that we do, because that's why they call this work the way showing work, right? Like way showers literally mean that there are some people that are here beforehand that are into this awareness. When people start waking up, they have somewhere to go and
Right.
somebody to be guided and understand what's going on here. We're creating an archive of information for them.
Right. We also have to be the people that those people who are waking up that are just a little on the freaked out side can turn to, because as they start to look at the community that's out there, we're not the ones running around that have little tinfoil hats on and going to these conferences pretending to be things that we're not.
Yeah.
We're the
Yeah.
ones that are having the experiences. We're the ones that have been there, done that. We're the ones that have incarnated back
Yeah.
into this earth so that
Right.
we can be here to help people to anchor in all of that information, which we already were. I have people that come into the office on a regular basis, especially this last month, that have been totally freaked out. Oh my God, do you believe in this? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do. And then they're like, how could you believe in this? How did you understand? How did you know about this? And then I start talking to them, about source and the vastness. And I said, if this does nothing else, I take it out of the alien arena. I said, if this does nothing else, this is going to help people to realize that source, God, is so much bigger than we ever imagined, because
Mhm.
we're just one little creation. Look at
Yeah.
everything else that's been created. How can we not believe in that? If you believe in God, you have to believe in these other life forms,
Right.
or you're limiting, you're sticking God in a box. I don't know anybody that's trying to do that. Everybody's like, oh my God, this is mind blowing. And the ones that are having these experiences they're starting to get a little bit excited, because
Mhm.
it's like, I never really thought about this before, but it's
Yeah.
on the news, so it has to be true.
Right. Exactly.
They're seeing it on mainstream, and it's
Yeah.
not just people on YouTube talking about it. It's not just people on
Right.
Facebook or any of the other platforms. It's
Right. Like a highly
people.
advanced, one of the highest intelligence officers, decorated intelligence officers, is
Yes,
the last guy that came out with this.
yes,
Right.
and that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and
So
it seems that a lot of individuals that have been a part of these programs and seen it within the military have been kind of threatened or felt that they couldn't say anything, and they've been like kind of waiting and wanting the opportunity to express themselves and say. Because imagine seeing alien life, imagine seeing UFOs, and then being threatened to be quiet forever,
yeah, yeah,
and decades go by and you don't say anything,
right.
right? It could change the world. So that
Exactly.
all the whistleblower stuff I've been listening to has been that, like, I thought I could never say it. They threatened me. But now Congress has given amnesty to whistleblowers.
I know. Just think about that. That's
Yeah.
huge. That's
Right.
huge. And also just everyday people are having dreams. They're
Yeah.
having interactions. And of course, we know that that's one of the first, signs of contact with
Contact.
people.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
next thing they're doing in their dream time, they're going on ships. The next
Yeah.
thing they're doing is they're having them show up in their living room, in my case, where I had that information brought to me about the soul reconnection technique from the Andromedans, the Angelics, and the Arcturians. It's making huge changes. And they said, we need this healing to occur now. We need the slate wiped clean, because we're already in that ascension process, and we have been for the last little bit. And I think that what's happening right now in mainstream is actually a really good indication that that's happening, because it's opening up doorways that people's frequency can raise, and we're doing it together as a human civilization.
Right, right. It's so interesting because it's all about shifting our consciousness to have the awareness that they exist, right?
Yes.
Because we've been in tunnel vision for so long, and shifting the perception so that we can perceive other reality, and all that's happening by like what's out there, ETs out there, non-human intelligence. All it's doing is on the subtle levels shifting people's consciousness to be open to something other than what they see. That's all it takes, right? And that's what's happening collectively, and through that, now that external reflection of that is reflecting an internal reality where people are more open to it, and all types of people have agreements with extraterrestrial races, their own higher self, to have communication. And I feel like, yeah, not only dream state, but even a state of channeling, a communication with these beings, because this is all like some very advanced kind of like quantum reality where information and data is instantaneous all over all the time. And what's happening now is, as we understand that as well, we're going to be able to download this information. So I'm like, I feel that just this year, since what's happened this year, this is now the foundation of everything. We move up from here. And if what we've already created is this awareness that we're not alone, and this non-human intelligence is this spacecraft owned by different governments, there's people having contact experiencing CETs, all this stuff. What's going to happen in a few years from now?
It's amazing. Well,
Exponential.
hopefully, one of the first things that happens is we get the med bed brought down to this planet.
Yeah.
That's going to be able to rock everyone's world, because can you imagine a place where humanity is totally healthy?
Right.
One of the first
one of the
things,
reasons why they don't disclose anything. What happens?
I know. One of the first things that my collective told me early on was that people cannot drop into the essence of who they truly are when they're in pain. If that's whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, financial, any of these things.
Yeah.
So if we're in pain as a society, and there's a device out there that can remedy at least that physical pain, a lot of the emotional pain just begins to dissipate, because that last straw that breaks the camel's back no longer exists, because now we have the energy to deal with life. Right now, so many people, they're in like this low level pain that takes a lot of energy just to be able to make it day to day.
Yeah.
They don't have that extra oomph that it takes, to
Yeah.
go the extra mile to seek. If they sit there and try to be in meditation, a lot of times they say, when I'm still, that's when the pain really hits me. So my form of meditation is walking. My form of meditation is exercising. Great, because that still allows this. So just imagine the next step being that the med beds come down, how that will in fact change the world. The pharmaceutical, the health, all of the healthcare is really going to radically shift.
Right. And that's we just shared that's one of the main reasons why, first of all, the UFO extraterrestrial topic is one of the most important, if not the most important topic in the world. But it's also one of the reasons why it's the most controlled, manipulated, disinformation around it, because not only, the medical industry and healing everybody and not having to pay and be preventative medicine, die slowly, all these different atrocities that happen within the pharmaceutical companies, but then also organized religion, right? That's going to have to be restructured. Petrol, they're not using gas to get down here, right? Electricity, how they're running everything. Are they paying for something? Are they pulling from space-time, right? And then monetary system, how are they trading? All these things are all the elements that control reality, right? That they used to control. So which takes me to this point. Very interesting that it's coming out in a way where it's showing that we've been lied to, whereas before they were trying to show that they haven't been lied to by saying like, oh, what is this? Let's figure it out together. That's what they're trying to tell us. But now it's coming out that without them, and it's kind of like not going against, but exposing what has happened, right? And it's almost like it's being allowed to happen like that. We're being allowed to see the hidden truths. And this takes me to the Gnostic text, where the Luciferian, Lucifer in the Gnostic text was a volunteer, like pre-325 AD, was a volunteer that chose to come down and be, because Lucifer was God's most trusted angel. He came down as the angel of light to give the darkness to humanity. He was a volunteer. And then Jesus came down, Christ came down. And when he came down and then he left, the keys were handed, the Gnostic texts say, the keys were handed over to Lucifer after Jesus' death, right? But the agreement was that there was going to be a new age, a new zodiac. God was going to come back down, star beings, interdimensional beings, whatever, universe source was going to come back down. And Lucifer had to voluntarily give up the keys because he was just playing the role he was supposed to play, right? And this is what I'm seeing is like, it looks like they're giving up the keys, because it's not like they don't have the power to shut this down. They have the power to stop it. But it's leading to all the things that you just shared. Like, what is the eventual goal of us realizing we're not alone in the universe? And they're not even saying something's out there. The evidence is coming out that they're here on Earth and different governments are working with them and even interacting with them and even dissecting some of their bodies after they transition.
Yeah.
This is huge. So
it is huge.
Yeah. What's going to happen? I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful. Yeah.
I'm hopeful too. But let me circle back real quick to you. So let's see. You're a poet. You're a rapper. You're a philosopher. You're the founder of Portal to Ascension. Now you're doing tours. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about your upcoming tours.
Okay. So I've always wanted to eventually do tours. For Portal to Ascension, I really wanted to kind of just like eventually do all types of productions that we could do for consciousness. And I thought it would be very fun to take people on tours, because I love traveling to ancient sites, and having a touring company was definitely something that I had as part of my ambitions for quite some time. And I've been attempting to grow into it. And finally, we got around to it this year. So Alan, myself, and Joan have, started our first tour, and we're going to Egypt in September. And we're doing 2 tours back to back. We have 100 people on both tours, so they're both sold out. And it's our first tour to an ancient site. And we're taking JJ and Desiree Hurtak, who are going to be the facilitators of the tour and, the speakers, which is cool because not only are they archaeologists and into the extraterrestrial understanding, but they're very much ascension teachers. So the tour is pretty much in alignment 100% with what Portal to Ascension is. The evidence, the mainstream evidence, the geological studies, and the fact that these ancient civilizations existed at a time where our consciousness was at a higher level. So instead of going there and being like, what's this, what's that? If we go there with a lens of what kind of consciousness were they at this point and why did they create this, and look at it from that, it brings a whole new perspective into what what's going on the planet right now. So Egypt this year, and we've already scheduled Egypt for next year. So we're doing November next year as well for Egypt. And then 2025, we're going to do Greece and Egypt. And then every year after that, we'll do Greece, Egypt, and Petra. So the goal is to have the Ascension tours a fully operating, department within Portal to Ascension. And every year that goes by, we will just add another tour and just be going around the planet. Like, it's not only a tour of ancient sites where we're connecting, but we're feeling like we're activating ancient ley lines and grids. And all the people that end up going on these tours together, we've had some downloads that these people have had past lives together, that the groups that have had other incarnations are coming together through us to go and reactivate those memories in those ancient sites.
Wow. How cool is that?
I know, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you chose these locations, what was your primary reason for choosing Egypt? Did you feel this personal? I know all of the history we just talked about, but did you feel this personal calling? Did you feel a connection to the pyramids? What was your personal motivation for starting these tours?
Well, I was always aware, for quite some time, I was aware of the possibility that Egypt could have been a colony of Atlantis, right? Just because of Plato's description, where Atlantis, the main city was, because it could have been a global civilization, but Atlantis could have been the main city of the civilization, maybe within Africa, Sahara, or off the coast there, as according to Plato and other people. Mm-hmm. Even the Egyptians say that they were, their origin story is that they emerged out of a great flood, okay? So, and if you look up, does Egypt have any references on Atlantis, you'll just find a flat out no in every place you look. However, it's very interesting that the origin story says they emerged out of a flood, right? So there was evidence to suggest that they could have been connected to Atlantis. Now, I never felt attracted to it because I'm not attracted to places that are so commercialized. Like my rebel self just goes to the places that aren't, right? I wasn't even though I loved and have reverence for the place. And then around 3 years ago, I started doing research for my presentation on Pythagoras, right? And when I was doing my presentation on Pythagoras, I knew that there's all the stories about him going to Egypt. So I started looking deeper and deeper into his life in Egypt and pieced together what mystery schools he went to, started looking more into the dating of Egypt, what kind of information that he brought out in regards to harmonics, in regards to consciousness, and in regards to mathematics, right? Those are the three things I was looking at for Pythagoras. And when I was doing that, I was finding why the structures in Egypt were placed where they were, the distance between the structures in Egypt, and when you divide it by specific numbers, how it creates like the circumference of the earth and different measurements, the distance from Earth to Sirius, in light years, and how many blocks were in the Giza pyramid, and the right amount of stones in that pyramid is also the amount of light years to another star system. And even the hieroglyphs are positioned in a way where even Thoth's staff, the way he's holding his staff, is measured at 23.5 degrees, which is the same as the tilt of Earth's axis, right? So that's just like, I can go on for ages on this, but that is just made me realize that every part of Kemet, ancient Egypt, which was originally called Kemet and was changed by the Greeks because they mispronounced the city of Memphis and they called it Egyptos. They said they went to Memphis when they came to Greeks went to Egypt, and they were trying to pronounce the city Memphis, but they pronounced it Egyptos, and then they gave the whole name of Egypt, Egyptos, right? So I realized that Egypt was so well crafted and put together that there wasn't one thing that wasn't done intentionally, not one thing, right? And it was almost like if there was ever a worldwide cataclysm, if Egypt survived, every single thing you need to know, how to rebuild society, how to make bridges, how to know the distance to stars, how to calculate the distance to stars, how big the earth is, what kind of shape it is, where other continents are, plus 100,000 more things are embedded in the way the structures are positioned, right? It's an artistic representation of how to rebuild everything. So imagine the left and the right brain synapses having to fire at the exact same level. They created how to rebuild the masculine energy, the whole civilization, through the artistic form of drawings, structures, and all this stuff. And even the hieroglyph of the Eye of Horus, right, being a cross intersection of the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, inner workings of how the brain is, right? Not to mention the frequencies when you go and chant in specific structures, they were generating sound energy that would help heal you and all this stuff. So when I started realizing this 3 years ago, I was like, oh my God, Egypt is way more than I ever thought it could be. I knew it was a lot, but this is something I really need to experience. Then I connected with Alan about it, and he was like, let's do tours to Egypt, right? And then that's how it happened when we started.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool. So that's awesome. Well, it's really interesting to see how you have gotten to the places that you are right now, because I think that this is going to help a lot of people be able to sit back and to think and to examine, hey, I've had that same thought. What if? What if? And Neil said, so let me think. So you're also planting a lot of seeds for people, kind of like the Johnny Appleseed here. You're throwing these seeds out today that can land on people and help them to be able to open up, to experience, to start their own research, to really start exploring those things and not have the fear that, their friends or their family, yes, they still might ridicule them for their thoughts or for their opening beliefs. But I think that eventually everybody is going to come around to the understanding that we have been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and that humanity itself had a helping hand. Where did that hand come from? From our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters, from our family, our galactic family,
Right.
And so this too, I believe, is going to also help to spark people. Can you imagine what will happen on the tour with all of these people creating synergy together, having this past life recognition or this experience of, oh my God, I know where I am. And having these remembrances that they can actually anchor into 3D.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, exciting.
I know. And this, Billy Carson just did a video not too long ago about how time actually warps around the pyramid, and that if you stayed in front of the pyramid, time actually slows down and you age at a slower rate. And it's based on a frequency that is being emanated from it. So these structures are emanating frequencies that you feel on the cellular level and activate your consciousness, even though technically they went dormant. They were created in a way that even the wind passing through these structures, bouncing off the rocks, creates a frequency that affects you. And that's also science. In the Mayan pyramids, we see that as well. So I'm ready. We got both tours. We have 2 private accesses to the King's Chamber on both tours. So we're going to go to the King's Chambers 4 times, Alan, myself, and Joe. Right. So yeah, I even though I'm excited and know what's going to happen, I really just I'm also just open to the fact that it's just going to be way more mind-blowing and heart expanding than I could even think about,
That's
imagine.
amazing. That's amazing. And that brings me back to your books again, because I think that whether that's an intention or not, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to anchor in this new knowledge. It's going to provide these heart openings. It's going to allow people to say yes, yes, yes. And we know that the more that they say yes, the more yeses are going to show up in their life. So again, if you could go ahead and tell people how they can find your books.
Okay, yes. So you can find it on Amazon right now. If you just go to Amazon.com and type in my book name, Neil Gaur Planet Earth, it's going to show up there. I think it's available some places in Europe. So if you're in Europe, you can try to see if you can get it. And but it's, you can get it in the US. And then also we're doing a conference in Glastonbury, August 11th, 12th, and 13th. So if you're around UK or Europe, want to come out to Glastonbury, I will have 50 books there as well. So I'll be selling my book over there. And then the next book will be out in a month.
Awesome. Very, very cool. So, as we start to wind this down, Neil, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave with people?
I would just say that be prepared for the perception of reality to shift greatly. What we've been talking to like Joan and a few people lately is that when it comes to a new paradigm, a new reality, us realizing that this world is something different than we always thought it would be, it's all about a perception, a shift, a perspective shift. If when things start crumbling and systems start falling, monetary system doesn't serve anymore. When the pharmaceutical medication companies and hospitals don't operate the way they operated, when institutions that are here to control and govern us, some may think that they were good institutions, start not working. Some you might even be like, why is this not working? It was actually helping. It was some welfare program, or some other institutions start falling, and the new old system starts crumbling. When Wall Street no longer works, when it happens, there's two types of realities you can be within. You can be so invested in the reality that is crumbling that your life is so dependent on it. Your phone stopped working. TikTok has stopped posting, right? And when when that kind of stuff happens, we're so consumed with it that it seems like the world is ending. It can create depression. It can create anxiety. It can create suicidal thoughts when people lose these kind of things, right? But if you have the understanding and you have the opportunity to tap into what we're speaking about here and realizing that something greater is occurring on the planet, and a lot of the systems that are creating kind of a disharmony within us are going to have to leave, then when these systems crumble, you can have the perspective that it's nothing, that has nothing to be scared about. Because ultimately, what do we all need? Or, we need food, we need water, connection, and in some places in the world, a roof over our head, but some places you don't need that either. so like,
Oh,
so no matter what, we'll be okay if we have our basic needs met. And those basic needs, I feel, aren't, even though they may try to take away from us, I feel that there's too much support and love on this planet for that to actually happen. Yeah.
absolutely. Beautiful thought to leave us with. So, Neil, thank you so much
Thank you,
for
Sheila.
being here today, sharing all your information with us. Again, Neil Gaur, check him out at Portal to Ascension. You can get his book on Amazon. Just type in his name, it'll pop right up. And I want to thank you all for joining us, whether you were live or whether you're watching us on replay. Thank you so much for being part of the Conscious Awakening series. So I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, wishing you a beautiful and blessed day, and namaste. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone.